Who is the first live-action Spider-Man? Everyone knows Tom Holland. Current Spider-Man of the MCU has been Spider-Man for over 6 film appearances when you include Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, while of course having his own trilogy. But someone must have came before Tom Holland, right? Well, of course, because before Tom Holland came the great Andrew Garfield. The man has now appeared in over 3 Spider-Man films, 2 of which he was the lead of, and he was the lead Spider-Man in the franchise, The Star. But there was a Hollywood franchise before Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, right? There must have been. Well, if you thought yes, you would be correct. The original Spider-Man trilogy was created by Sam Raimi, and if you were to ask any person walking down the street who was the first Spider-Man actor in live action, the overwhelming answer would be the actor from this trilogy, Tobey Maguire. He's featured in over 4 Spider-Man films because he was in No Way Home as well, and he started being Spider-Man way back when in like the great year of 2002. This is many people's introduction to Spider-Man. I mean, Tobey was the first Hollywood blockbuster Spider-Man actor, so it makes sense why for so many people, Tobey Maguire would be the first Spider-Man. However, Tobey Maguire is not the actual first Spider-Man in live action. Although Tobey donned the costume over 20 years ago and was the first Spider-Man to appear on the silver screen, there was a Spider-Man before him in live action. In the great year of 1977, we go way back, and a great actor by the name of Nicholas Hammond had actually played Spider-Man in a live-action TV movie. The movie was just called Spider-Man, and it actually spun off into an entire trilogy. There's like a Spider-Man Strikes Back even. This was in 1977, so this is way before Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man. However, even in the great year of 1977, Nicholas Hammond was actually still not the first person to don the Spider-Man costume in live action. If you want to find the original first ever Spider-Man actor, the first one to ever appear in live action, you'd have to go back to 1974, in which a TV show called The Electric Company featured Spider-Man in his first ever full-fledged live action role. The man who donned the mask was named Danny Seagren, and this man is the first ever live action Spider-Man. So give it up for Danny Seagren. Sadly, actually, Danny Seagren had actually passed away this past Thanksgiving. So for a second, let's do a moment of silence. And due to his passing, honestly, it made me want to make a video about this man's Spider-Man show, the show he featured on. Not only did Danny Seagren do a phenomenal job lending his talents to portray Spider-Man for the first time ever in live action, but on top of that, the show is a marvel. It's a time capsule into a period in which things just felt more authentic. Things felt more fun. Things didn't feel so cynical like they do today. Let's talk about the first ever Spider-Man live action show for a bit, Spidey Super Stories. Yeah, that's the name of the show, Spidey Super Stories, and let me tell you, if you haven't seen the show before, it is quite the trip.
Hey, where's my funny but? I bet he took it. He's my friend, but you know he is. He's got to read whatever. Hey, Eats, wait a minute. I'll trade you for a Daffy Duck. Go, Eats.
This show was geared towards children, but watching this show that came out in 1974 in the great year of 2025, this show feels like a literal fever dream. The show features many original villains, some of which are just characters with no copyright. You know, you've heard of them before. Dracula is there, the Abominable Snowman as well. And then other villains for this show are made up and they're never really seen before again. Characters like Spoiler, Thumper, and the Prankster. There's no iconic classic Spider-Man villains that would appear in the show that first appeared in 616. However, there is one villain that would appear in this show, and he would refuse to be boxed into this show. He would break out because fans were clamoring to see him in more stuff. You know who that is? The fucking Wall. Yes, this is actually the show where the Wall comes from. If you didn't know, this show actually inspired comics as well that were geared towards children, and in one of those comics is actually the first comic book that the Wall appears in. But technically, the Wall appeared in this show before even that. And if you don't know who the Wall is, you're bugging. He's got to be like the most boring and uninspiring Spider-Man villain ever, and it fucking rocks. Dude is a literal wall. Wow, that is like next level villain design right there. In the episode with the Wall appears and he's terrorizing a Mets game. He hits a player on the field. He also hits an umpire who then goes flying, and Spider-Man must step in. He has to stop watching his favorite team play, and he has to get involved. The story actually would play out almost exactly like the comics, just with like a little more pizzazz. When you watch this show, there's certainly something to be said about how the fight scenes go. Obviously, this show is a kid's show, and it's also live action, so the budget's just not there for like a large set-piece fight scene, and you don't really need a large set-piece fight scene for a kid's show. But the way the show does do the fight scenes or action sequences, I just find them so charming. Maybe because it's an old show, but I thoroughly enjoy it. Most of the time, the show will like cut to a single image of a fight, and like it'll freeze it on the screen for a second. So like the wall will knock these bozos around, but when Spider-Man webs them up, it just cuts to a shot of web, and then boom, the wall is subdued. For the time period, to me, it feels so fun, especially when you remember how the show inspired a comic line itself. If you're going to use effects in a show because you don't have a lot of budget, making it look like a comic book, that's probably the way to go about it. Not all the effects are like this, however. One episode where Spider-Man fights the prankster, you'll see this kind of effect for the webbing. Look at this. Honestly, I thought this looked cool as fuck, even today. Even to this day, I thought this looked pretty cool. Maybe have the prankster act a little bit better and like less erratic, but I thought the artwork and the artistry behind like this effect, I thought it was really cool. I've never seen something like that before. I really enjoy how the fights aren't like the focus at all, but even with the company trying to save costs, it just looks more unique and creative because no other show did stuff like this. Spider-Man in this show is also really unique. Outside of his costume just being like a phenomenal design of the original suit brought to life, the man Spider-Man in this show doesn't really talk much. He uses speech bubbles to convey how he's feeling. Has anybody seen Spider-Man do this in a project like this? In live action? Speech bubbles? This was also clearly like a budgetary issue as well. I bet it was probably really hard for them to figure out how to get Spider-Man to speak while under the mask for the time period. But the show was just leaning so heavy into the appeal of a comic book, since it didn't have the money to do so, is a fun way to do it. Danny Seagren was spectacular in the role. With no words at all, the man was able to convey so much emotion. Credit is certainly due to the first ever live action Spider-Man. Even with no dialogue, he still managed to have an impact on the character and make the character feel like Spider-Man on the screen. Let's go back to the Walls episode for a second though. Is it me or did that umpire in this scene look familiar to anyone else? That's because this is fucking Morgan Freeman. Yeah, Morgan Freeman. The Morgan Freeman. He is a reoccurring character and a narrator on the show. Morgan Freeman. This is literally mind-blowing to me. He's literally one of the most iconic actors ever, with arguably the most iconic voice in narration ever. Everyone recognizes this man's voice. Dude was literally God in Bruce Almighty. That's how angelic and perfect his voice is.
Are off, God. God has taken my bird and my bush. God is a mean kid with a magnifying glass. Smite me, O mighty smiter.
He played a plethora of different roles in various episodes, whether it be like a villain, or like he'll play like a good like officer or something standing around. It's honestly super cool, especially for the time period. I don't want to get too heavy into this stuff, but like I think it's important to talk about at least a little bit. Many shows of the time period, especially in the 70s, were not so inclusive. You'd rarely see a black man playing a mythical creature like a vampire because traditionally vampires were from Europe. So media would never show a black man as vampires. You know, apparently black people can't come from Europe, according to the 70s. At least that's how it was back in the day in media. Or you'd often find black people in media as like the bad guy or like the dumb comic relief. This show was nothing like that. Morgan Freeman in this show played a vampire. He literally played Dracula. That's something that was stigmatized in media for years, not having black people play mythical creatures. But he did this in the 70s. Like, damn. He also played a police officer and he played an umpire. These are like occupations people would consider upstanding members of society. I think it's really cool that in 1974, Morgan Freeman was on the show and he wasn't just there because he's black. He was there because he could fucking act. Like, he was a good actor. They needed an actor to play a vampire, so they said, Morgan Freeman, how about you get out there and act? And he did it.
Isn't she a lovely lady?
I'm gonna even go a step further, though, because I feel like we need to nail this home and hammer it home. This show, yes, Spidey Super Stories. This show featured an actress named Melanie Henderson. She played the President of the United States in the great year of 1974. Remember, the show aired in 1974. That would mark the first time ever a black woman was shown as the President of the United States on TV. The first time ever. That's really fucking cool, man. I think it's amazing that children in the 70s got to grow up with not only just a live-action Spider-Man, but a diverse cast around Spider-Man that helps kids understand the world isn't a homogenous place and it's okay to be different. It's totally normal and okay. These kids also got to grow up with fucking Morgan Freeman as a reoccurring actor on their Spider-Man show. That's just such a fucking massive dub. That'd be like if I found out Denzel Washington was actually the voice actor of Robbie Robertson in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. It's just so badass.
What else, huh? Spider-Man!
Hey.
He's my best.
I like him a lot myself.
So freaking cool that Morgan Freeman was in the show. Lastly, before this video ends though, I do want to say it one more time. I want to give serious props to Danny Seagren. The man is the first ever official Spider-Man in live action. Came before Tom, came before Toby, came before Andrew, came even before Nicholas Hammond. Most people don't know this. The man recently passed away, and I want to honor him a little bit, so that's why I wanted to make a video talking about the show he was in, and I really hope you guys all walk away with some more knowledge about who truly was the first ever Spider-Man to don the costume in live action. This man was phenomenal. He did a great job, and even the show overall is pretty fun and great. Like I said, it is a kid's show, so it's not like gonna super knock your socks off, but it's from the 70s, and it's fucking random as hell, so you should probably just give it a chance. Each episode's like 3 to 5 minutes. It's super weird and wonky, but still fun. I strongly recommend to everybody to check the show out, and shout outs one last time to Danny Seagren. I want to say thank you guys for everybody who's watching this video. If you made it this far in this video, you probably learned something new, and at least I hope I taught you something today. And if I didn't, just check back again for my next video, and hopefully you'll learn something else, because I'm trying my best out here. Dunk out. Peace!